G'day friends and foes, Arjay here with Arjay's This Is Not Legal Advice, or TINLA for short. Nor is it legal advice, nor can it be relied upon as such, blah blah blah. So this is a quick video, being eaten by mosquitoes here. Basically just giving an update as to what's happening with my Surfers Paradise protest that's tomorrow. So it's gone past 5 p.m. I've not been contacted by the police, hi Callisto, and Megan. I've not been contacted by the police opposing my protest, and it's been 5 business days, so therefore it's an authorised protest, because that's the rules, and obviously they didn't want to risk taking it to court. They might well fine me tomorrow or something, but that's a different story. So with the different versions of protest application, if you want to call it that, or notification that I put in for protesting from 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. tomorrow at Surfers Paradise, and as I said, people can leave early, of course, and go to the Brisbane one, which is not my protest. But my protest is about the lockdown, as well as, things like mandatory medications, which should not be mandatory at all. And also as a political rally for Reset Parliament, my new political party. Hi, Paul. Are you Paul from the UK, the truck driver? Hi, Lyndall, as well. So tomorrow, with the different versions of protests I put in, one of them was for 31 people and the other one was for 100 people. Current restrictions in the Gold Coast are 30 people, the last I checked, unless it's been changed. And, is that getting eaten by mosquitoes? Police acquiescence and acceptance that we're going to have 100 people there. So I'll probably go there a little bit earlier than 11 o'clock, and basically, start live broadcasting so people can see if it seems to be safe or not. Everyone is responsible for their own actions, of course, and if someone wants to turn up to a protest and risk getting COVID fines, if there is more than 30 people, then, you have to take that. I can't follow you, Paul, on Facebook. Maybe I can do a follow. I've got 5,000 friends on here, so I can't add any extra people. Hi, Josie and Vasilios. That's a really cool name. It's like ancient Roman. Seems like it. It's probably not. I take it that it's Greek with Cartamitus. Anyway, so thank you, Lyndall, for sharing. So if people can share this video, it would be good. I also am updating that I've not been visited by the police or anything like that. So, that's interesting. There are a lot of people going around about videos where people have been arrested trying to say, hey, look, the police officer's badge is missing the Victorian coat of arms emblem, something like that, or something apparently with James Bartolo's clock, I've been told. But, who knows if they're genuine arrests, who knows if they're not. The best thing to do is trust no one, or as Ronald Reagan said famously, trust but verify. So obviously don't tell anything dodgy to people, not that any of us would do dodgy things, but we're just going to have a peaceful protest, and people can still follow the 1.5 meter rule, blah blah blah. If there's more than 30 people, then groups of 30 people should be allowed. That would make sense. So Alyssa's saying it's a new yellow detective's badge. So someone had it zoomed in, it's missing the Victorian police force emblem, whatever you want to call it, like the upside down pentagon. Hi Bo and Yadoga and Bill. Hi Sid. So Anyway, as I said, I've not been visited by the police, which is interesting. I haven't been called by them. Normally when you put in the applications for an authorised peaceful assembly, then you do get a phone call, say on a Monday or a Tuesday, if you put it in, say on a Friday the week before, and they say, gee, my hair looks really big with this shadow. And the police say, hey, look, we've got concerns, or we don't have concerns, we're happy with your thing, or even, hey, look, it's not going to go ahead, what are you thinking? And that hasn't occurred whatsoever. As I said in a previous video, putting in for the authorised protest, then basically the police had 5 days to oppose it. That includes taking it through a real mediation, as well as taking it to the magistrates court, and they haven't done that because, as I pointed out in the videos, if they did do that, then I'd have the ability to argue in a fair magistrates court that the decision is invalid because of X, Y, Z. Hey, I'm on a video. Can you go away, please? Just talking to someone. Yeah, I don't know why the Human Rights Commissions are silent, especially even a federal one, because they look after the Australian Human Rights Commission Act of 1986, and that includes, I'm just going to slide down, I'm at a skate park, just wait a second, hopefully I don't break my leg. Ready? Ow! There you go, so go for a walk where it's quieter now. So, the Australian Human Rights Commission Act includes things like the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights, yet they've remained silent. Why aren't they out there saying, hey government, you're overreaching, you are trying to ban the right to lawful assembly, and just a second, just wait there please, and you know, the right to lawful assembly, the right to freedom of association, to, you know, publicly disagree with the government, that kind of thing. So why aren't they doing that? So just looking at some comments. So Alyssa says their emblem is different, it's silver, not the usual emblem. So that's about the new detective's badge. It's very hard to see here. Anyway, and so that was the Zoe Lee video where she got arrested, the pregnant lady. So Bowie's asking, have I researched Santos Bonacci? Want to understand Australian law? Yeah, so I know of Santos. He uses David Wynne Miller-esque arguments in court, and as far as I know, doesn't win with them ever. So by David Wynne Miller, I'm referring to a US boilermaker who was going around doing, you know, speaking tours, seminars, telling people that the law doesn't apply to them, that you have this thing called a straw man, etc. Again, for people that have watched me before, they'll know that I'm going to do a proper video about him, not about Santos, but about David Wynne Miller. So I'll do that at a different stage, but I would not be seeking legal advice from Santos personally. Even though I'm sure, you know, he does have some good things that he says as well, but, you know, I wouldn't be seeking legal advice from him. And I'm not giving legal advice, that's why my show is called This Is Not Legal Advice as well. So Greg says, peaceful protests are 100% lawful. Our Attorney General has stated, neither the state of emergency or state of disaster can override our rights to protest under the universal rights of human rights, should be the Charter. Or Charter of Human Rights and Responsibilities Act 2006, Victoria, and Australia-wide Human Rights Commission Act. Yeah, so that's again with the Australian Human Rights Commission Act 1986, a Commonwealth piece of legislation, which of course overrides state legislation as per section 109 of the Constitution, then that makes international treaties such as the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights law in Australia. So restricting movements are illegal, e.g. 5 kilometres, I agree. Curfew, I agree. So it goes on about Article 13, says we have the right to freedom of movement, agree. Article 19 says freedom of peaceful assembly and protest. Articles 26 and 27 of the Vienna Convention. So with the Vienna Convention, what domestic legislation has that been put into law with? Because basically international law is not really law at all. It's just an agreement, and states or countries or whatever you want to say have to actually turn it into domestic law. So I get you though about can't suspend treaties that the Commonwealth has signed up to under the Vienna Convention, but like I said, international law is not really law at all. Sorry, I'm just scrolling through. So also, it looks like you cut and paste, like duplicated the thing a little bit. So just scrolling through. Yeah, so section 83.4 of the Criminal Code, and that's a federal one, 1995, that again goes on about you cannot interfere with people's political rights. So the wording from memory is interference with political liberties, and you also have that in every, or probably every, states and territories electoral acts. So what is it in Queensland? Maybe 111 of the Criminal Code for the Queensland one, or 113, something like that. So I've complained about people interfering with my political rights, so more of that will come out later. So about police commissioners breaking the law, that's true. Especially, you know, it is protesting. A lot of people say, hey, don't call this a protest, call it a picnic in a park or a exercise session or whatever. I did come out with my first protest back in April, which I did a video on the 6th of April saying, hey, why don't we protest, basically. And then on the 7th of April, I, you know, put my money where my mouth is and went and protested in a park. And part of that, you know, I coined the term World Freedom Day, which now, you know, tomorrow is just Freedom Day, but that's beside the point. But I did point out that, hey, look, you were allowed to exercise, so why not exercise and protest? But I think it's a mistake not calling a protest, because you have more rights as a protester, even though the court doesn't really care if you call it, you know, a sit-in or a picnic or whatever. If you're going to get in trouble for protesting, you're going to get in trouble for protesting no matter what you call it. So with, you know, as part of your political liberty and the right to political communication, to voice your opinion, hey, government, you suck. You are breaking the law. Hey, police commissioner, look, I'm allowed to peacefully protest, etc. And then also talking about the Biosecurity Act, so that's a federal one, and basically about control orders, that they have to be directed towards individuals, blah blah blah, not a blanket thing. So, and only the sick people are supposed to be quarantined, and really under section 69 of the Constitution, states don't even have quarantine powers. Paul says COVID 666. I think the camera just reversed, sorry. About no testing. So Vasilios suggests people make phone calls to the Human Rights Commission and express your concern. Sure, why not put in complaints? if you're directly affected by something, then of course you can complain. And that includes against government bodies. So you can say, hey, Queensland Human Rights Commission, or is it a commission up here? Sometimes they have slight variations of names. But hey, look, I want to have a protest, and if you're too scared to go out and protest, fair enough. Or you don't want to risk, a fine or getting beaten up by an angry police officer or whatever, which hopefully isn't going to happen. But, complain. Say, hey, look, my rights have been negatively affected. What are you going to do about it? It's your job. You're supposed to be an independent watchdog. Yeah, so Alyssa's saying about James Bartolo, and they smashed his door open, apparently. Someone told me that apparently he did a video afterwards, and there's supposed to be some anomalies that it's 8 o'clock or something on his clock. Anyway, I haven't watched that. I've watched the actual video of his door purportedly being broken into. Jim says human rights commissions are about people that are alive, not about people dying, summarised. It's pretty funny. But it's not really funny, but, you got to either laugh or cry about these things. So, Karen says, cops in New South Wales are trialling 3 different uniforms, so it could be in any of them at any one point in time. So that's really helpful. So, someone's been attacked and they're like, oh, is that person in a yellow uniform a police officer? I don't know, maybe it's SES. Okay, well, don't worry about it. Diane's pointing out about the Common Law Court. I do have a TINLA video about the Common Law Court. I do see that there are problems with the Common Law Court as an organisation. I think that's in TINLA 19. If you type TINLA, T-I-N-L-A 19 into like a YouTube search, it'll come up. Hi Mary. Mary says that I'm awesome and loves my lives. Thank you. It'd be more interesting if I didn't just have a black background behind me, but that's fine. And thank you also for watching and spreading the news and all that. Bill, so have I got permission for the protest that I have? Yeah, so in Queensland, if you put in a peaceful assembly notice and the police don't oppose it within 5 days, business days that is, then it's a deemed authorised protest. So I have an authorised protest tomorrow, 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. Might really finish at 12 o'clock, just so people can go to the Brisbane one and, swell their numbers. And also with that, I have on the different forms, because I put different versions in case, say, one was knocked back on particular ground, for 31 people on one form and 100 people on another form. So, maybe you can go in groups of 30 just to be safe, and, don't go to protests if you're sick, don't go to protests if you intend on being a jerk or trying to cause a riot or something like that, of course. And also it does remind me of a funny thing, that there was a video once on YouTube with I guess you'd say Antifa protester, and her advice was, and it's basically, it's not my advice and it's pretty disgusting, but her advice was, hey, if the police are being violent and arresting people that they shouldn't be, then she suggested that the people that are in a police car urinate in a car, because then they have to take that car out of service to clean it, so it's one less car for them to use, which is interesting but gross. And I don't know if the Australian police would care. They'd probably just stick the next person in a person's urine, maybe, although then you've got work cover, health and safety kind of issues happening. So Mary's asking about James Bartolo. So it depends really. If it turns out, with my court cases for instance, getting the mosquitoes, that COVID directions are invalid in Queensland, then they're probably invalid in Victoria as well, and therefore, you know, Sol, Thanos, Raphael, if he was also arrested, if he's from Coburg, that was arrested with Thanos, and I think I already said Sol, if they, you know, if it turns out these COVID directions are invalid, then they cannot have been inciting people to break the law because it's not law. So therefore they can get out of that. And then, you know, sue for false arrest, unlawful imprisonment. You know, James can get a brand new door, something like that. So Raymond's saying, same as family law in federal circuit overrides IVO. So you can put what IVO is if you want, so other people can know. Lyndall says, the Victorian government infringing against the Constitution in any way? Yes, so they are. So I do have a Juris Doctorate law degree, but I'm not a lawyer yet, because you have to do further training afterwards, called practical legal training. And if it wasn't for that, then I'd already be sworn in as a solicitor, and then, you know, I could start studying to be a barrister after a little bit of practice. But basically, the whole lockdown is illegal. I argue that it breaches section 69 of the Constitution in terms of the state governments, and therefore, you know, you can read into it the territory governments as well. Transferred all quarantine powers to the federal government, and with the territories, they now are self-governing as of the 1980s, so therefore it's sort of like a semi-state, so they shouldn't have quarantine powers at all either, and that includes the power to detain based on, you know, does someone have an illness or not. Of course they can enforce federal quarantine orders, which are done under the Biosecurity Act, and should also, you know, they must comply with certain things, such as having, you know, a person's particular circumstances taken into consideration. You know, if someone's got a communicable disease, it's a very dangerous one, which COVID isn't really. If you look into it, even though some people might start doing thumbs down or something to that statement, but, you know, if you actually look into it properly, then it's not that deadly. You also have sections 117 of the Constitution. So, for instance, there was a lady who had some twin babies. I think she might have been from Lismore or Ballina, somewhere around there, and she wanted to go across the border to Brisbane to the hospital. I'm not sure exactly what happened to the babies, if they were born premature or if they were ill in some way or whatever, and the request was refused. And apparently Anastasia Palaszczuk said something like, Queensland hospitals are for Queenslanders, which is just ridiculous. And the lady had to fly all the way to Sydney, and then apparently I think both of her babies died. Maybe someone can correct me in the comments. But, you know, that is discrimination of citizens from, or residents of one state to another state, and that's prohibited by section 117 of the Constitution. You also have mandatory vaccination that's going to be brought in, even though, you know, they're saying, hey, look, you can't get paid Centrelink, you can't travel, you can't go on public transport, you can't get a passport, blah blah blah, if you don't get vaccinated. There's some of the suggestions on how to make it coercive but not mandatory, but it really is mandatory. That's prohibited by section 51 subsection 23A of the Constitution. So the governments can provide dental and medical services so long as it does not constitute civil conscription. And the other big one is section 92, which includes that there's a right to free movement of people across state borders, and also obviously therefore within the borders as well. And there is case law to back that up, such as Cole and Whitfield, but many people that have watched many of my videos don't want to hear the same things again. So Tracy's suggesting people contact David Shoebridge, so that's a Greens, is he a MLC, member of the Legislative Council? in a state parliament, or is he a senator at the moment? So Vasilios says James Bartola has been... got a moth flying around me now. So James Bartola has been enlightened after his arrest and asking people not to attend. Yeah, so I'm talking about my protest in Surfers Paradise in particular, and people can make their own decisions if they want to go to protests or not. But, you know, does there come a time where you don't have any rights to protest about keeping them if people don't stand up early? I have heard of Ricardo Bossi Serra, and, you know, he seems like a nice bloke. And with Australia One, I think it's an interesting name. I haven't heard anyone explain it this way, but, you know, if you change the one into WON, it's saying Australia One, as in you win. So I have my own political party, which hopefully over time we absorb other little parties. And basically what's different about my party is, and it's called Reset Parliament, but basically it's a party of independence. So instead of people being bound to toe the party line, you know, we're going to make a policy on cars, and, you know, how much water vapour can come from hydrogen cars or something, just making up a silly example. Then traditional parties would do that, and if people vote against that, then they get punished. The Liberal Party is supposed to allow conscientious votes or conscience votes. So in other words, hey, look, if you don't think that's a good thing, then vote against it. But reality might well be a bit different than in practice. And with the Labor Party and Greens parties, it's my understanding they don't have any conscious vote whatsoever. So Summit, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, sorry, says get Max Egan if possible. Yeah, so with my protest tomorrow, I am going to keep it sort of low key. If lots of people turn up, then great. If I turn up and no one else does, and that's fine too. But, you know, if people are just going there with their, you know, backpack, and you've got food packed and water and, you know, a hat, whatever, then if you see me getting arrested, then just go to the beach. Just go use a barbecue, something like that. And, you know, then you don't have to worry about it. Sure, you can film and stick it on Facebook Live or something. Might be pretty funny watching me get my head smashed open with a baton by a police officer or something for some people. But, you know, just go there with your normal clothes and beach towel and swimming togs, whatever, if you want. And, you know, you can go hang out at the beach. Maybe only 3 people turn up. Who knows? It is an authorised protest, as I said, and they haven't objected to a protest notification that said about 100 people. So surely, even with the COVID directions being 30 people only for the Gold Coast, it's 10 people for Brisbane and Logan area, but, you know, just go in groups of 30 if there's heaps of people turn up. And what are they going to do? They probably are going to focus on arresting me, if anyone. But again, then I get standing to challenge it in court and say, hey, look, these COVID directions aren't even law in Queensland. Even without the constitutional arguments, they haven't even been gazetted. So therefore, they're no law at all, as per the Statutory Instruments Act. Or Act, I should say. Particularly sections 47 and 49. But also, there's other sections like 52 and whatever, which are also applicable. Hi Pamela, thank you for your prayers. So even Mary's 70-year-old mum is going to protest in Brisbane. She's made her own sign and she's ready to go. You know, that's awesome. And again, you know, it's peaceful protests and people are keeping their social distance and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, what the hell's wrong with protesting? So Bronnie's on the Gold Coast and planning to go to Brisbane. So the Brisbane Protests, it's my understanding, I have heard 2 different locations for start locations, but 1 p.m. until 4 p.m. I believe, at either King George Square or at the Botanical Gardens, and they're near each other anyway. It's like, 1 kilometre walk between them, and the Botanical Gardens are right near Speaker's Corner and Parliament House. So I have my protest at 11 a.m. and then people have time to get to Brisbane if they wish to go to Brisbane as well. Sorry that I'm frozen on some people's feeds. It's interesting watching in an Uber though. I wonder what the Uber driver's thinking. Hi Stan, hi Clayton. 7 comments. Yeah, there's heaps more comments than 7. Hi Earl. Yeah, maybe there should be like a bake sale or something for the police. Someone should go give them some donuts so they get weighed down a little bit, so you can beat them in a race. Have beach sprinting. Thanks Alyssa. Just looking at some things. So Finn says those that don't know the truth must be ignorant and perhaps mental. Okay then. Albert, hi. The whole idea of permit to protest is BS. Yeah, so in Queensland you don't actually need a permit to protest, but what it is, it's basically just trying to be helpful to the police so they can plan things. So if you didn't have these ridiculous COVID directions, and if you were going to have a protest on, men's rights, women's rights, children's rights, whatever, then you were going to have the protest and have 5,000 people there, then it's helpful for the police to know, so one, they can have some police officers there in case there are some rat bags trying to discredit, whatever the particular movement is. So, if someone's been a rat bag, go tell the police that are there. Say, Billy just appears to have, yelled at Sally or whatever, and get rid of them. Because they might well be there to discredit people. There is a thing called agents provocateur. So often, if the police want to make trouble, they'll have fake protesters start smashing windows in the hope that other people do as well, and then they start kicking everyone's backside, and then they'll arrest the agents provocateur and do these fake cases and whatever, but they get off, of course. Hi Mick from Melbourne. You going to potentially protest, or would you protest if you're in a state that wasn't so communistic, like a gulag? So and just reiterating for the new viewers, so I have a protest planned for 11 a.m. until 1 p.m, but might finish an hour earlier, at Surfers Paradise, somewhere near the Surfers Paradise sign, and they've got a big ugly red sculpture. Don't know if it's supposed to be a flower or what it's supposed to be, but it'll be somewhere around there. And I will go there a bit earlier and live stream so people can see if I get arrested if they don't want to go then, or if they want to join and whatnot. And then the police haven't opposed it, so therefore it's deemed an authorised protest, which has a special protection for participants, so long as they are still being reasonable and not bashing people up or being violent little thugs or whatever, then basically you can't get done for obstruction. So Clayton says, as far as he understands, something shouldn't be classified as a pandemic until it hits 10% death rate. That's alright, Ronnie, you can just rewind it at the end. And anyway, so again, I suggest people that are going to protest to bring lots of water, food, bring your swimming togs and towel if you want. If you're going to Surfers Paradise protest, my protest, and political rally, it's got two purposes, and that's fine. So I'm just quickly checking the last few messages. So if no one else has any questions, and I'll bugger off soon, I have launched Reset Parliament as a political party. I do have, if you go to Arjay Martin's For Australians page, which is probably where you're watching this video from, I do have the constitution of the party up, as well as an application form. If people could look at those, fill them in, and email them to vote.a.martin, martin, @gmail.com, then light just died. I think this battery's gonna die. Then, that would be helpful. I don't know if you can still see, but it's just gone dark. Anyway, so basically we need 500 members in Queensland ASAP so that we can register the party. Otherwise we'll have to run candidates as independents, which has less benefits. Because of the government's actions, they have delayed the launch of the party by, should have been launched in June, but that has not happened at this stage. So we're behind schedule, but we are the only party, and I'm the only person fighting against these COVID directions in Queensland, including in court, and as far as I'm aware, at least the only political party to do it. Clive Palmer does have a Section 92 action in regards to Western Australia with his, various companies or whatever. But, imagine how powerful a message it can be if I do win in court before the election, or maybe that's pushing the timeline a bit too quickly. I have to get the appeal into the Supreme Court, but the Liberal National Party, LNP, so in Queensland the Liberal and National parties have combined into one party, they're merged. They aren't standing up for people and standing up against the unlawful, illegal, unconstitutional, and even inoperative COVID directions, nor is anyone else besides myself, and as I said, Clive Palmer in regards to Western Australia. But, imagine how powerful a message it is that, hey, look, these other people don't bother helping you, only we do. So, we might actually get a bunch of people elected for Reset Parliament. But we do really need those registration forms completed, and then we've got to send that to the Queensland Electoral Commission, and then they send out letters to people saying, hey, you're really a member of this party, and you send a letter back in a prepaid envelope and you say yes, and then we can get registered, and then you have extra benefits having a registered political party, including which it shouldn't be like this, but it is what it is, but it includes things like extra electoral funding, which again, it shouldn't be like that, but the parties make the rules and they hamper independence, and they shouldn't be doing that. And of course in Queensland the Labor Party is in power, so they've caused the ridiculous lockdown situation. And sure, it might have made sense to do it for a few weeks. We were originally told, hey, 2 weeks and then everything goes back to normal, and then 2 weeks turned into 2 months, and now it's 6 months or whatever it is. 6 months of our lives wasted, basically. And sure, it gives some people some time to think, hey, how can we make society better or whatever, but that's beside the point. The point is people should have the option to, if they want to stay home, stay home. If you want to have a vaccine, have a vaccine. If you don't want to have a vaccine, don't have one. If you don't want to stay home, go out. And even, they banned people from even going to the beach at some stage. Yet it's vitamin D that you get from sun that is one of the many things that help you fight off illnesses. Social cohesion also helps you fight off disease, believe it or not. You know, it's not me just saying this, it's actual facts. And I'm not sure when this video is going to cut out. I'm sorry I had to go near the road, but otherwise there's no light. So Clayton says it's a shame he's in South Australia, otherwise he'd like to be there and help. Thank you. And then AstraZeneca apparently is known for some bad things. Yeah, so it's not only the Labor Party in Queensland, it's the Liberal Party in New South Wales doing the same thing with, or similar things with COVID directions, and a bunch of other people, and it's completely illegal. Yet if you or I break the law, then we get our butts kicked, put in it nicely. You know, you can get stuck in jail or massive fines or whatever, including for not even breaking a law, but breaking COVID directions. And the COVID directions aren't even valid in Queensland, let alone really anywhere in Australia probably. But, you know, the government just does what they do. Yeah, if I get arrested, Kevin, then I can take it to court and we won't have to wait until my appeals are going through the Supreme Court, which will probably be, you know, November when it gets decided or something like that. And then, who knows, there might be an appeal to the High Court from there. But it could also be removed to the High Court under the Judiciary Act, but that's another little story. But, you know, if they do arrest me, then basically we can find out if the COVID directions are legal earlier, unless they want to delay things by referring a question of law to the Supreme Court, which they can do. But what's the point? If it's going to be illegal in November, then it's illegal now too. But I guess the point would be if they are trying to rig elections in terms of delaying the inevitable result that the COVID directions are illegal. Even in New Zealand, it was determined by their High Court that the first 9 days of their lockdown was illegal. So Kevin's saying about the latest video, presumably that's of James Bartolo. Anyway, does anyone else want to say anything else before the video cuts out, which I'm sure it will sometime soon. The phone I was using as a torch, the batteries obviously ran out, so this is going to cut out. Okay, well, I'll bugger off then. So please like, share, subscribe. Go to Arjay Martins for Australians page on Facebook, and please download the application form to join the party. We are looking for people in every state and territory, but obviously with the Queensland election, where I'm running for the seat of Surfers Paradise on the Gold Coast, that's the number one priority at the moment. So, hi Ruby as well, and adios. Bye. Let's see if I can keep my ugly face this ugly, or if it gets made worse, or if some baton bruises tomorrow. Bye.